Hello there, Hardin High School art students. This is Mr. Verzat doing your drawing demonstration for today, and I just wanted to kind of go over just some basics on what drawing is, what you can do with drawing, and basically teaching you the ability to draw anything in the world. Anything in the world. And when I say anything, I mean anything from realism, photorealism, cartoons, caricatures, all sorts of stuff. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you a brief sample of a few different images and give you a technique that's going to carry over into literally everything we do here in this class. So it's very important that you master this technique before moving on to any techniques in the future, whether that's shading, even painting, collage, anything uses this specific technique. So now I'm going to show you guys exactly how to pre-draw. Pre-drawing is very, very easy once you get it down. It's hard at first for beginning artists to wrap their brain around the thought of drawing something very rough and then saving all the good stuff till last. You have to be patient. We call that delayed gratification. The opposite would be instant gratification, where you push a button and it just happens. Well, in art you have to delay your gratification, and so this is an example of how we do it. I'm going to use blue pencil for all my pre-drawings, and I'm just going to use normal pencil when I go to finish my work. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start a drawing of something very basic. Let's say, I don't know, a hamster or a mouse or some fuzzy little critter. And I'm going to show you how that happens. So I'm not really going to say anything. I'm going to point at everything I do, and you just watch what I do. Now, what you saw me do was just use a whole bunch of circles. And to be honest, I mean, you can pre-draw using circles, you can do it with ovals, squares, triangles, cones, anything. But the concept is that you use basic shapes and you build a drawing from the ground up. Now, I didn't look at anything for this. I spent a lot of time, I had a pet hamster when I was really little, and so I spent a lot of time looking at that hamster to see, what his face looks like, what his head looks like, everything. And so in art, we call that studying our form or our subject. A form or a subject is what you're trying to draw. And so after having a pet hamster or a pet dog, or maybe you even have, say, a pet horse, you're probably a lot better at knowing what a horse looks like than I am. I haven't seen that many horses. Well, what you do is you study your form, and that'll help you know how to build things. So here we go. I'm going to continue the drawing and just watch what I do. Most of my pre-drawn ovals, and I've gone over it with a totally different type of lead just to show you the difference. And as you can kind of see, we've got what looks like a kind of a little rodent-like hamster thing. And so this would be the next stage in your drawing process. After you start your pre-drawing, then you go and you hit it with your pencil, and you try to make it look more like the form that you're making, not so much a bunch of ovals. The next step after that, you can even see it up here in the ears, is you go and you add some shading. Now here's something to show you really quick about the form. Let's take a look at, say, these feet right down here. They were circles, but we all know that hamsters have toes. So even though you might have drawn a circle, doesn't mean you have to stay within that circle that you've drawn. So you can even see right in this area, I pulled his back out a little bit further. That's perfectly fine. That's because the purpose of a pre-drawing is only to act as a blueprint, not a rigid railroad track that you stay on. It's just there to help you. So Let's speed up the tape one more time, and I'm just going to finish some more of this drawing to show you an example of how a drawing kind of takes form using light source and shading and all these good techniques that you're going to learn pretty soon, and also a couple different texturing techniques. Okay, that's not quite a finished drawing, but you can kind of see the process that it went through. So if you pre-drew your piece, even using gray lead, the goal of it is to eventually hide it so it's not there. Now when I use blue, that's just so that you could see the difference between pre-drawing and normal drawing. But the real goal is to be able to draw very, very lightly when you do those shapes. So that's how a drawing takes form. Let's take a look at some stuff. There's many different types of art, and this is an example called caricature art. That's what you'd see at the mall typically if you saw a guy with a booth set up and he has all these cartoony, funny drawings of people that he's looked at, for example, like celebrities and such, and it exaggerates facial features. There's all sorts of different ways to draw. This is a way to draw with marker, and you can see it's a lot of solid, straight lines. Really no shading going on here, but there's a little bit here, but what shading there is, even that is solid line work, and that's what we call pen and ink. Pen and ink. It uses a marker and a pen, a really fine tip pen, which we'll get to use later on in the year. Here's an example of caricature again, except this was used with a pencil, and this was a caricature commission work that I got from a relative, and commission means that you're just hired to do something for one job. And this piece is an example of caricature using some techniques that you'll learn later in the year, mainly light source, where the light's coming from, where the shadows are at. Also shading, different shading techniques in order to get a sense of light and dark, and also form, and also value. Value, that just means different shades of gray, and the more shades of gray you use, the more realistic something looks. And so if I can count pretty much 1, 2, 3, about 4 different shades of gray just in this eye socket. Imagine how real it would look if you had 7 shades of gray. But yeah, there's a whole new lesson in that in the future, and I think you'll enjoy it. Here's an example of caricature, again, kind of cartoony. This is a student that we had, and I like to draw caricatures of my students. If you want me to draw one of you, just let me know, and I will gladly do so. As a matter of fact, the more I have, the better. And then there's, that's kind of the fun way to draw, and then there's the kind of what we call the formal way to draw. Formal, like if you were to think of a dance, some dances you show up in your normal clothes. Formal dances, you get a tux or a dress and you look all snazzy. Well, we're going to be doing that kind of work in here too. There's a time in art for fun, humorous art like this, and there's a time for formal work that looks just like this. And what's the difference? Well, the main difference is that you just spend a lot more time on it. And you focus more on technique. If you can have a lot of fun doing formal work and informal work, then you've just hit bank. It'll bleed into your work, and you're going to have your work will shine because of it. So let's take a look at this picture right here. There's a couple of pictures here, but this one of this person, this student sitting down in this chair here, spinning a basketball and studying. Well, in order to get this, I had some trouble making that pose from scratch. I had to actually have a student pose for me. And what I had her do is just sit at a desk and then hold a book. And what I did is I did a drawing kind of like this. And what it is, you see there's really no hair, there's no really much anything. It's just kind of a circle built on a circle with some lines and kind of a stick figure look to it. Well, that's a pre-drawing. Most of my human forms, I start with stick figures before I even, get to the good stuff. And so that's what this was. I used this picture, and after I drew it, I used this as a roadmap. And then I had that off at the side, and I used that stick figure to make this one. And I changed some things. I slanted her shoulders a little bit, changed her leg positions, tilted the head a little, and that's just to give it life, make it interesting, spice it up with those details.